So today, we're doing a deep dive into a sector that, well, most people view as a boring, dusty chore. Or they just forget about it entirely.
Right, but for the operators who understand the actual mechanics of this business, it is a highly optimized profit engine.
Totally. Our mission today is to uncover the surprising economics, the hidden scaling blueprints, and the weird geographical quirks of this service business based on a couple of comprehensive strategy analyses we've got in front of us.
And honestly, it is remarkably lucrative. Looking at the business models in our sources, the mechanics of the HVAC duct cleaning industry, it reveals just an incredible blueprint for scaling.
Okay, let's unpack this, because the sheer scale is what caught my attention first. The global air duct cleaning market was valued at a massive 6.3 billion US dollars in 2024.
Yeah.
Billion. With a B, just for blowing dust out of a tube.
I know it sounds crazy, but that $6.3 billion figure makes perfect sense when you map it against the physical reality of the built environment. Like, this isn't just some niche service operating in a vacuum.
Right.
It is deeply tied to global infrastructure. I mean, think about the sheer volume of commercial real estate. You've got skyscrapers, hospitals, shopping malls.
Decades of residential housing tract.
Exactly, built over the last 50 years, and they almost universally rely on complex forced air HVAC architecture.
Yeah, it's everywhere.
And when you combine that sprawling physical footprint with, a sharp post-pandemic spike in public awareness regarding indoor air quality.
Oh, for sure. People care about their air now.
Right. Add increasingly strict municipal safety regulations, and you have a massive unavoidable maintenance requirement.
Unavoidable is the key word there. But to really understand how an industry reaches a $6.3 billion valuation, we have to zoom all the way into the micro level, right?
The unit economics.
Exactly. The global numbers are built on the insane profitability of just one single residential job. The anatomy of a typical, say, $700 home duct cleaning visit is just wild.
It really is a very specific, highly optimized equation. Let's look at the actual cost of goods sold, or OGS, for that $700 ticket.
The breakdown in the sources is honestly fascinating. So a homeowner pays $700. Out of that revenue, the business pays the technicians wages for the few hours they're on site.
Which is estimated at about $150.
Right. Then you factor in fuel for the work van. That's roughly $20. Next are the consumables. Things like disposable boot covers, plastic sheeting to protect the customer's furniture, masks, specialized cleaning agents. That's another $20.
And then you have the operational friction costs.
Yeah, like credit card processing fees and the per job slice of the CRM, the customer relationship management software. That adds maybe $10.
Which leaves the total direct cost to fulfill that $700 service at just $200.
Just $200, leaving a gross profit of $500.
It's incredible.
Think about that margin. I mean, I often compare business economics to running a restaurant, right?
Oh, totally different beast.
Completely. In a commercial kitchen, you're constantly battling food spoilage. You've got massive lease payments for the dining room, a huge front-of-house staff, unpredictable ingredient costs.
Margin is constantly bleeding out.
Exactly, bleeding out through a dozen different cuts. But here, a van, a high-powered vacuum, one trained technician, and your total cost is $200 for a $700 job. That's a 60 to 75% gross margin.
What's fascinating here is how that gross margin acts as a counterbalance to the operational barrier to entry. Because a 75% margin might suggest, well, anyone could grab a shop vac from their garage and start undercutting the market.
Right, start a side hustle.
Yeah, but the physical requirements of doing the job effectively prevent that. The sources break down the realistic initial investment. A bare-bones, highly risky startup could theoretically launch for, say, $10,000 to $50,000.
That's on the extreme low end.
Right. A functional, competitive operation requires a reliable commercial van, heavy-duty air compressors, specialized agitation whips to knock the dust loose inside the metal casing.
High-definition inspection cameras, too.
Exactly. Plus liability insurance and your initial marketing budget. That puts the realistic day-one investment between $23,000 and $73,000.
And that initial equipment choice creates a massive fork in the road for a new business, doesn't it?
It really does.
Because, you could start with portable wheeled equipment that you drag into the customer's house. That lowers your startup costs significantly.
But the sources point out that doing so artificially limits your ceiling.
Right. Hauling gear up and down stairs takes time. It limits the size of the house you can effectively clean, and it just drags down your daily job volume.
Compare that to a dedicated truck-mounted system. The vacuum is powered directly by the van's engine, generating massive suction through a single hose brought through the front door.
You finish the job in half the time.
Exactly. And that time savings is the critical mechanism for protecting the net margin. Gross margin is just a theoretical number before the reality of overhead kicks in.
Yeah, you still have to pay for administrative staff, vehicle depreciation, marketing.
Right. So net margins typically settle between 15 and 35%. But the operators who utilize those faster truck-mounted systems and rigorously optimize their daily routing to minimize driving time, they're the ones pushing that net margin up to 40% or more.
Wow. But I mean, a 40% net margin is purely theoretical if there are no ducts to clean.
Very true.
The physical architecture of a country literally dictates whether this business model even exists in a given region.
Yeah, geography is the ultimate filter for this industry.
Looking at the global distribution, North America is just the undisputed anchor. The U.S. and Canada generate roughly $2.6 billion of that global total.
And the mechanism driving that is purely structural. Ubiquitous forced air heating and cooling is the standard for North American construction.
Right. Almost every modern home here has a sprawling network of sheet metal hidden behind the drywall. We have massive suburban houses, which drives up the average ticket size per job.
And the sources also highlight a cultural behavior, which is really interesting. North Americans have a very established habit of outsourcing home maintenance.
Oh, absolutely.
The demand spikes specifically around real estate transactions. When a house is sold, or after a major drywall renovation, or when a new family moves in and just wants a, clean slate for their air.
Canada actually provides a perfect example of how environmental factors amplify those baseline numbers. Provinces like Ontario and Alberta show incredibly strong market performance driven entirely by the climate.
Because of the winters.
Exactly. In sub-zero winters, residential and commercial HVAC systems are running constantly, sometimes 24 hours a day. More runtime translates directly to a higher volume of air circulation.
Which means faster particulate and dust buildup inside the vents.
Right. And that accelerated buildup actually pushes the average ticket size and service frequency slightly higher in Canada than in many parts of the U.S.
But I have to say, looking at the sources, there's a geographic data point that seems a bit off at first glance.
Oh, the European numbers.
Yeah, exactly. The data lists Europe as a $1.8 billion market. But homes in the UK and across the EU historically don't use American-style forced air heating.
Right, these boilers.
Boilers, wall-mounted radiators, or modern ductless heat pumps. There is virtually no sheet metal in the ceiling to blow dust out of.
So if a British home doesn't have American-style ducts, how does an entrepreneur access a $1.8 billion market? I mean, it seems like a massive contradiction in the data.
It does look like a contradiction until you look at the commercial sector. You don't avoid the European market, you just completely pivot your target demographic. The residential duct cleaning market in the UK might be practically non-existent, but the demand in the commercial space is monumental because it is legally mandated.
So they aren't selling to homeowners at all?
Not even a little. The entire mechanism of demand in the UK and EU is driven by rigid maintenance laws, specifically frameworks like the TR19 standards in the UK.
TR19?
Yeah. It's a comprehensive standard for the internal cleanliness of ventilation systems. It dictates exact tolerances for microscopic grease buildup in commercial kitchen extraction systems.
Oh, wow.
Think about a massive multi-story hotel in London or a busy pub. The grease vapor pulled up into their exhaust hoods is highly combustible.
Fire hazard.
Exactly. If a pub exceeds the TR19 grease thickness tolerance and their extraction system catches fire, their insurance is entirely voided.
Ouch.
The law forces these commercial entities to maintain a legally mandated schedule of deep cleaning, so the business strategy shifts. You're not trying to convince a homeowner that their air is dusty, you're providing a mandatory compliance certificate to a facility manager.
That fundamentally changes the service being sold. You aren't selling clean air, you're selling fire safety and legal compliance.
Precisely.
And honestly, whether an operator is securing a compliance contract in a British pub or cleaning a suburban home in Ohio, that initial visit is really just the beginning of the transaction.
This is where it gets fun.
Here's where it gets really interesting. The sources explicitly state that the initial cleaning is just a foot in the door. The real wealth generation in this industry comes from the upsell.
The upsell engine is what transforms a low six-figure operation into a multi-million-dollar enterprise. Our sources note that optimized companies add 20 to 30% in top-line revenue strictly through secondary services offered while the technician is already on site.
And these aren't gimmicks either. They're highly practical, high-margin additions. Take dryer vent cleaning, for example. A technician is already at the house. They have the air compressors and the vacuums running. Taking an extra 20 minutes to blast the highly flammable lint out of a dryer exhaust pipe carries a massive profit margin because the setup cost is already covered by the main job.
Then there is coil cleaning.
Yes.
The evaporator and condenser coils inside an AC unit get completely caked with dust over time.
The analogy I always use for this is making an athlete run a marathon while breathing through a thick paper straw. The system is just suffocating. It's working twice as hard to pull air, which spikes the homeowner's electricity bill.
Right. So cleaning that coil removes the straw, instantly improving system efficiency.
Exactly.
But those are just the baseline efficiency upsells. The complexity and the profit increase significantly when you introduce specialized environmental services like mold remediation.
That's a whole different level.
It requires a much higher level of technical expertise. A crew can't just brush mold away. They have to establish negative air pressure containment zones so they don't blow active spores into, say, a child's bedroom. And they utilize specific regulated biocides.
Makes sense.
Because of the specialized knowledge and the immediate health implications, mold remediation is by far the highest paying upsell.
I mean, nobody's going to look at a camera feed showing mold in their living room vent and say, let's wait on that.
Right.
It is an immediate conversion.
It is. And that leads to the final tier of upselling, indoor air quality, or IAQ equipment. This transitions the business from pure labor into hardware retail.
Interesting.
Technicians install ultraviolet light systems directly inside the ductwork to neutralize bacteria as the air passes through. They upgrade basic paper filters to advanced HEPA filtration systems or install whole home air purifiers.
So the company captures the retail markup on the equipment plus the installation labor, all during a routine maintenance visit. But as profitable as those residential upsells are, the commercial B2B pivot is the ultimate goal, isn't it?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, residential jobs are the fuel that gets the company off the ground. They provide the immediate high-margin cash flow necessary to buy more vans and hire more crews.
Right.
But residential work is inherently volatile. True financial stability requires recurring contractual revenue from commercial clients.
The sources actually map out a blueprint that visualizes this shift perfectly. Imagine a crew executing a purely residential strategy. They might grind through, say, 5 individual houses in a week.
Dealing with 5 different homeowners.
5 different driving routes.
Yeah.
And for an average ticket of $500, that yields roughly $130,000 a year in gross revenue for that van.
Now contrast that with the commercial blueprint. That same crew could do just 2 commercial jobs a week, say a local clinic and a mid-sized office building. With a commercial average ticket of $1,500, that van yields roughly $156,000 a year.
Wow. So the crew is servicing less than half the number of locations, drastically reducing the time spent sitting in traffic, minimizing the administrative burden of onboarding new clients, and still generating higher top-line revenue.
Furthermore, commercial facility managers prefer preventative maintenance plans. They want the vendor to automatically return every 6 or 12 months.
It completely replaces the anxiety of hunting for daily residential leads with a predictable, multi-year cash flow pipeline.
Exactly.
Now, it sounds incredibly smooth on paper,
Yeah.
high gross margins, highly logical upsells, and a clear pathway to lucrative B2B contracts. But every business model has friction.
Oh, definitely.
We have to look at the dirty side of the duct cleaning industry because the bottlenecks here are severe.
The most destructive bottleneck is actually psychological. The industry is constantly fighting a pervasive reputation problem.
The market is absolutely saturated with the infamous $99 bait-and-switch scam.
Yeah, it's terrible.
We see the flyers jammed in our mailboxes, or the targeted social media ads promising to clean an entire home's ventilation system for an impossibly low price. The psychology of the scam is brutal.
A shadowy operator shows up, uses the $99 quote just to get inside the front door, and then proceeds to fabricate a structural crisis.
Exactly. They might claim to have found dangerous black mold, or tell the homeowner their furnace is on the brink of catastrophic failure.
They essentially hold the safety of the home hostage, slapping the panicked customer with a fabricated $1,000 to $3,000 bill before they'll even leave.
That predatory behavior creates a massive headwind for legitimate operators. Consumer skepticism is incredibly high, which requires honest businesses to invest heavily in brand building and flawless online review profiles just to prove they aren't part of the scam ecosystem.
It's exhausting for them.
It reminds me of the anxiety of going to a deeply shady mechanic. You pull in for a heavily advertised $20 oil change, and 10 minutes later, the mechanic is telling you that if you try to drive the car off the lot, the engine block will crack.
You feel completely extorted.
You really do. And because of that dynamic, a legitimate HVAC operator isn't just selling clean air. Their core product is actually trust.
Building that trust feeds directly into the most dangerous operational risk, the cost of customer acquisition. Legitimate operators rely heavily on high-intent search traffic. They need the homeowner who is actively typing reputable, certified duct cleaning near me into Google.
Right.
Because the ultimate job margins are so high, the bidding war for those specific search terms in major metropolitan areas is punishingly expensive. The cost per click, or CPC, routinely ranges from $15 to $50.
Wait, $50 just for a click?
Just a click.
That isn't even a book job.
No.
If a company's website is slightly confusing and it takes 10 clicks to finally get one homeowner to pick up the phone, they have just spent $500 to acquire a customer for his $700 job.
And that 40% net margin evaporates instantly.
Instantly.
The customer acquisition cost math can easily bankrupt an unsophisticated operator. And this financial pressure is compounded by the infrequency of demand.
Right, because it's not an emergency.
Exactly. If a residential plumbing pipe bursts, water is destroying the kitchen. The homeowner calls an emergency plumber immediately, regardless of price, but duct cleaning is entirely discretionary. The industry average suggests a homeowner might only commission the service once every 3 to 5 years.
And the sources even highlight that some indoor air quality experts are deeply skeptical about the necessity of routine cleaning.
Yeah, that's a big point of contention.
They argue that unless there is visible, verified mold, evidence of a pest infestation, or thick debris from a recent construction project, blowing air through the vents isn't strictly necessary.
Which means a long-term marketing strategy cannot rely on manufactured urgency or cheap scare tactics. Operators are forced to sell educational value.
They have to painstakingly explain the mechanics to the client, showing them exactly how removing a half-inch of particulate dust reduces the strain on the blower motor, extends the lifespan of a $10,000 HVAC system, and stabilizes their monthly utility costs.
So if an operator can navigate that minefield, if they can combat consumer skepticism, survive the brutal $50 Google ad clicks by converting leads efficiently, and build a brand rooted in education rather than fear, the ceiling for growth is staggering.
But it's not easy. The sources include a rather blunt assessment of what happens to operators who fail to build those efficiencies.
That quote, right.
Yeah, they state that without a structured sales system, rapid lead response times, and an optimized CRM to handle routing, the business devolves into, quote, self-employment with expensive equipment.
Self-employment with expensive equipment. It's a painful phrase, but it highlights the core mechanism of scaling.
If the owner is the one answering the 7 a.m. phone calls, driving the van through rush hour traffic, physically running the vacuums, and then doing the bookkeeping at midnight, they haven't built a business.
They've just purchased a highly demanding, exhausting job.
Exactly.
Scaling out of that trap requires transitioning from physical labor to systems management.
And the trajectory of that scaling journey is really satisfying to trace. It generally starts with the solo owner-operator phase. One person, one van, executing perhaps 2 jobs a day. If they work steadily throughout the year, maintaining that $700 average ticket, they're generating roughly $336,000 in gross revenue. After expenses, they're pulling a net profit somewhere between $80,000 and $150,000.
It's a solid living, but it's capped by the physical limits of human endurance.
You can only drive so much.
Right. The inflection point happens when that solo operator steps out of the van entirely. They purchase 2 or 3 more vehicles, hire dedicated technicians, and employ a dispatcher.
Ah, the small fleet stage.
Yes. This introduces the concept of routing efficiency. If a dispatcher sends a crew from the far north suburbs to the deep south suburbs at 3:20 p.m., that van sits in traffic for 2 hours.
Windshield time.
Exactly. The crew is burning fuel and hourly wages while generating 0 revenue. It is a broken supply chain. Mastering that geographic routing allows a small fleet to push revenue up to $1.5 million, netting $500,000 in profit.
And once that routing system is perfected, the company expands into a dominant local brand. They blanket a city with 5 to 10 crews.
Now you're talking real volume.
Right, because their branded trucks act as rolling billboards. Their thousands of positive reviews dominate local SEO, so they no longer have to pay Google $50 for a click.
Their customer acquisition cost plummets.
At this size, they are generating $2 to $6 million in revenue, pulling down over $1 million in pure profit, and successfully blending high-margin residential upsells with steady commercial contracts.
Reaching that level of systemic efficiency unlocks the final exit strategy: acquisition by private equity or a home services roll-up. Yeah, these are massive holding companies that acquire profitable local plumbing, electrical, and HVAC brands to consolidate back-office operations. They evaluate these businesses based on EBITDA earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization.
Basically, a clean metric of operational cash flow.
Exactly. A highly systematized duct cleaning company with recurring commercial revenue will often sell for a multiple of 3 to 6 times its EBITDA.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener? We started by looking up at a plain metal grate in the ceiling. What we found behind it is a highly scalable enterprise disguised as a blue-collar chore.
It's incredible.
It is an industry where the baseline unit economics offers 75% gross margins, but actual survival requires executing a complex psychological and logistical dance.
You have to build unshakable trust to defeat the $99 bait-and-switch scammers.
You have to seamlessly integrate high-margin upsells like UV purifiers and dryer vent clearouts.
And ultimately, navigate the transition from grinding out residential one-offs to securing those predictable, legally mandated commercial contracts that attract private equity.
It perfectly illustrates how some of the most lucrative opportunities in the global economy are hidden inside the unglamorous maintenance of our physical infrastructure. The next time you hear your air conditioning kick on, or you look up at the giant exposed industrial vents in a modern restaurant, you'll know exactly the kind of highly optimized $6.3 billion machine required to keep that air moving.
You know, this raises an important question regarding the future mechanics of the industry.
Oh.
The sources pointed out that the infrequency of residential demand, the fact that homeowners wait 3 to 5 years between cleanings, is largely because they are guessing. Unless they see visible mold, they don't know what is inside the ductwork.
Right. Out of sight, out of mind.
But consider the trajectory of smart home technology. As HVAC systems become more sophisticated, integrating real-time indoor air quality sensors directly into the ductwork, that 3 to 5 year guessing game might disappear entirely.
Wait, you mean the house would know when it's dirty?
Exactly. We could see a near future where a smart thermostat detects a localized spike in particulate matter or moisture and autonomously dispatches a trusted, integrated cleaning crew the moment the system falls out of optimization.
A house detecting its own friction and automatically ordering the maintenance that would completely rewrite the customer acquisition model of the entire industry.
It would be a massive paradigm shift.
Well, thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep looking closely at the infrastructure around you and keep questioning the hidden mechanics behind those everyday services. You never know what massive economic engine you are completely ignoring.